Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is a series of bad business videos featuring the MP5, and it's going to tell a rather grand tale about how flippant teammates can be in said servers on bad business. So this is also going to be another additional piece of information about my thoughts on the MP5 revamp. I'll mention some things I didn't mention the first time that I forgot to mention, and I'll go over some of the things that I'd like to be a little bit more clear on, depending on what I said the first time. And it all starts with a game here on Trainwreck, or whatever this map is called, I always forget. I really like this map. We're playing King of the Hill. King of the Hill funnels everybody towards the middle so I can have some fun. And as you can see, I'm using the MP5 with the MP5K barrel and the big boy drum magazine as I get taken out by a level 0 AK, which of course does more damage than any gun I could ever wish to use because it's just the way it works. And we have a pretty contested game here. It's kind of even in as much as a lot of the players on the teams are pushing the objective. Everyone's trying to do what they can, and our team has a couple more capable players than theirs does. So it's kind of, you know, standard fare for the most. I'm just running around doing my thing. The MP5K barrel on this weapon is meant to increase, I think, mobility and be a little bit closer to, you know, the high-speed, high-flying antics that you might want to apply. And I'm running around with no optic on it as well, because I'm still in this phase of trying to use the iron sight. And you know how I feel about iron sights, guys. I came from iron sights. I love a good iron sight, but there's certain ones that rub me the wrong way. And as much as I can learn to use them and apply them, I would much rather have visibility than a sight that occludes my aim. And I look at it like this, because you'll see a lot of the main critiques against using an optic on something that has a, you know, personality biased good iron sight, is people will say is when you have the choice to run a different attachment rather than a red dot, you're wasting that slot. And I wholeheartedly agree with that particular perspective. I've felt that way in many Call of Duties and used iron sights that I didn't much enjoy, and learned to do that because they were generally attachments that I felt could definitely bridge the gap to make the gun a lot better. On bad business though, I don't feel the same. In Call of Duty, you aim at somebody and they die in a second. They die in like 3 frames. It's such a fast game and the time to kill is really quick. In this game, people, especially at long range, can take seconds to die. It can take a long time. And if you get on target immediately and start shooting them and it starts flashing and you're not entirely certain what you're looking at and things start to get, you know, blurred and not as clear as they were before, it can be very difficult to confirm a kill that you should have got and you would have got if you were playing something with a much faster time to kill. If this was Phantom Forces, half of these kills would be happening in seconds, you know. So in this game, I would absolutely argue that clarity and vision is worth the attachment slot. And I would go as far as to say that the attachments that you're missing out on don't really make that much of a difference unless you're trying to do something very specific. One of the things I notice on bad business, which I just find to be very strange, as I get absolutely demolished by the AK-47, the gun that I can't wait for a revamp of. One thing you notice is stock guns in this game are really good. It's almost like they've got some kind of weird perk on them that makes them way better than they are when you put certain attachments on, sorry. And it's really strange. Like, I remember the first time I picked up the Galil. The first time I put the Galil on, it had no recoil, it had great hip fire, and I dropped 90 kills. And it's one of those things where I felt like the more things I put on the Galil, the less it performed. And it still performed really well, but I did notice that it didn't feel as crazy as it did with that. And it might be one of those placebo moments, but I feel like a lot of guns run really well with very limited things on them. So there are times when, as much as I'd like to add this and add that, because of the random nature of the recoil, or at least the spread that you're given, it's one of those things where sometimes it just kind of feels the same. So you might hold your breath in thinking that if you're going to apply something to a gun, it's going to be this miracle cure for whatever you don't like about it, when in reality, it really isn't that much of a change. And I absolutely recommend saying, you know, absolutely try different things, different setups, different tapes, different scopes, you know, different barrels, different everything, because you never know what you're going to find and you never know what you're going to like. There's some capable people in here. I don't know if it's the connection or if it's just a couple of decent players, but the amount of times I'm getting straight up lasered is kind of disconcerting, which is really frustrating in this game. And I don't know if you feel the same, ladies and gentlemen, but as of recently in bad business, I feel like I shoot people 1,000,000 times and they don't die, and I feel like I'm always getting hit for 50 damage. People sneeze on me and I take like 50 chunks off. It's insane. I just see my life melt away. And I think it's something to do with the servers, because it just feels like they're stacking damage on you. And it can be really difficult to fight because there's certain people that kill you as quickly as he did, but he had a good reason because he's using a shotgun. And this is a lot more contested than I remember, which this is my favourite type of game on Bad Business, when you've got both teams trying to win and you've got a decent mix of players and it's forcing you to get in there and do what you can. Admittedly, if I was using an optic on this MP5, I'd probably be a bit more helpful to my team because, in all honesty here, I don't like this iron. I don't think it's bad, and I think for Roblox and for Bad Business it's one of the better ones. I do really like how thin it is, but it just doesn't hit me in the way I'd like it to. Look how many of their teams on our hill too. This is awesome. It's really cool to see this. It just makes me excited to play. Because you know you're going to have a fight, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Is it fun when, you know, you don't have a fight and you're stomping people? Absolutely. But every so often it's good to remember what it's like to have people that shoot back and actually try to win, and that's exactly what you're seeing here. And the hip fire on this gun is really, really nice. Super, super fun. And I don't even have a laser on, which shows you how useful it is, which is also very good. But the model for the MP5 I talked about briefly, and I want to mention something because this is a bit of a longer video, and you people might have the answers, so you might be able to help me out here. But the person that's been doing a lot of the remodels is a guy called Haxs, who is a very gifted and capable modeler, and he makes really, really nice guns. But there's one glaring issue with them, and I don't understand it. There is a system that enables you to mount any optic to any gun, essentially. It's a piece of technology known as a Picatinny rail. And you might have seen it before if you look at the top of modern guns. They have these kind of ridges on them. It's a strip of ridges that goes up and down. Each one is like, there's one that is embossed and there's one that's embedded. And they just kind of slide things onto them. And I don't know if it's a limitation on the polys, the vertices, the triangles, whatever you're counting when you make these in the model. But I've noticed from the UMP and various other weapons that he doesn't seem to be a fan of putting them on. So that was a showcase of the stats, guys. Notice that people on my team right here are all saying GG, right? So everyone says team GG. The teams rebalance, and now they're all on the enemy team, and I'm against them. Because if you don't know about how skill-based matchmaking works in Roblox, this is something that I've seen Ethan mention on the Discord, which is completely out of their control, apparently. The way that matchmaking is governed has nothing to do with them. That might be not completely correct, so feel free to correct me. But to my knowledge, what happens in this game is if you have good stats, they will generally separate you from others with good stats. It will auto team balance, and anybody on your team that did really well will generally be put against you. And that's how they try to maintain a semblance of balance. And for the most, it can be okay, but if you stay in the same server, it dictates that you will end up with all the terrible players on your team, and everybody who's on the enemy team will be a hell of a lot more capable than the ones that you are sharing your particular objective player with. And it leads to frustration, but it's just the way that the game works. And I really wish it was random. I feel like random is always the best in these type of situations, but once again, I don't know enough about Roblox, I don't know enough about Bad Business to say whether or not that could be something they've implemented, whether or not this is intentional. I'm not too certain. I know a lot of people would prefer it the way it is, because they're not the person that has to carry the incapables, but you'll notice now in this gameplay that the enemy team is much more capable, and my team has no map presence at all. They're kind of running around and doing what they want to do, because I'm definitely going to have to play a lot harder here than I was before. So just pay attention. And this person here with the katana is one of the people that was on the hill with me in the previous gameplay. One of the people that said GG, one of the people that was on my team. So pay attention to him, because it might be important later on. You'll also notice, guys, I've taken the barrel off, the MP5K barrel off, and I've put the optic on. So I'm now running a much more comfortable setup, and hopefully I'll be a lot more lethal and a lot more capable, because I absolutely prefer this to the one I was using. I've also got the tactical stock, the one that reduces recoil. It slows you down, but I really like the feel of it. But as I was saying, sorry, before I got distracted by what's happening in this particular trio of gameplays here, it seems like when Haxs remodels these guns, he doesn't give them Picatinny rails. He puts the rails there, but he makes them flat. And I don't know if this is something that's requested, I don't know if this is something to enable so that it doesn't take up too much memory on the file size, but it really, really bugs me. And I know it's the stupidest thing to be annoyed by, but the presentation of the weapons in these games, I think, is really, really nice. I think Ethan did a great job of establishing the guns, learning to model, putting them in there, and now they've contracted a guy who has obviously got a bit more flair for it and a bit more experience, and he's coming in now, and he's making them look really, really good. And all the models, they look superb. So for the top of the UMP to have just a flat, no Picatinny rail, it irks the living shit out of me. The MP5 is one of those examples where this is a gun that was made. When was this gun even made? In the 60s or something? This is a ridiculously old gun. But it's amazing, and it's the standard for submachine guns, you know. Heckler & Koch absolutely hit it out of the park, and it gets iterated on and iterated on. And there are many versions of this gun that doesn't have any Picatinny systems on them at all, but there are versions that absolutely do. That was messy as hell, but we got it done. So the MP5 is not a big version of this for what I'd like to see, but there's just... Is there some kind of... Does he not like it? Is there an aversion there? Is it just easier not to? Because I don't know anything about the modelling software that they use to make the guns. I've learned modelling software myself and indeed modelled guns, but I used it on something called 3D Studio Max. And to pick a face, pick an edge on that and pick a surface and then just extrude it, and you could literally segment each of them and then pick the ones you want to come out and pick the ones you want to stay the same and then extrude them all at the same time by the same measurement. It takes like 40 seconds. It's not a difficult thing to do. It makes me wonder if it's resource intensive or if it's something that Roblox doesn't like, because I honestly don't know. But I'd love to see him apply more of those. And maybe he's one of those people that's a really, really good modeler, but he doesn't really care about guns. He doesn't know much about guns, you know, because it's one of those things where not everybody that plays first-person shooters, guys, knows everything about guns. They're vastly different things. And nor should they. You don't have to. But I really like the aesthetics of guns. So for me, guns are like cars. I see a car, and I just think, wow, that's a car. I don't get it. Is there a chick on it? She's half naked. She's got boobs. That's great. Cars do nothing for me. Except maybe certain cars like Mustangs and certain old school, you know, the V8 Interceptor from Mad Max. That thing's a piece of art. But every other car couldn't give a single fuck. It's just not my thing. If you like cars, that's awesome. But for me, that's what guns are. When I see guns, I love the ergonomics of them. I love the aesthetics of them. I love the engineering. Everything about them to me it's modern day art that just so happens to be designed to destroy things, which is unfortunate but still beautiful. You know, they're like a fucking cheetah. It's just this thing that just wrecks. And Roblox does a very interesting take on weapons where, you know, they're kind of low poly, they're kind of intentionally... You could call them lo-fi, couldn't you? They're lo-fi weapons. People love that word at the moment. Low fidelity. And I like that aesthetic because it has an eye for realism, and then it has an eye for taking away a little bit of that, making it a bit more retro, a bit more simplified, a bit more Spartan, but still adhering to the fundamental blocking of what these guns look like. And truth be told, I think the guns in this game look absolutely phenomenal. I really do like them. I've grown to like them a lot. And there's just that one niggle that gets me. And I'd be interesting to know what the reason for that is. And I probably could ask Haxs, but it's one of those things where I don't want to come across like an asshole to the guy, because he's doing great work. And, you know, sometimes when you're a creator and you create something and some random dude comes on like, I don't like what you've done, it can be one of those things that, even though you've got 50 people saying it's cool, that one guy that's like, oh, I don't like this, they stand out, and sometimes it can definitely hit you right in the center, you know. And I don't want to be that dude, because I think art should be celebrated, I think it should be cherished, and I do think it should be critiqued, and I do think you should speak out, but sometimes, do you have to be that guy? You really don't, do you? So I choose not to be that guy, but I am curious. And as you can see here, guys, super close game. I'm on the objective, and you've seen how I play Chernobyl. I rarely come in here unless I know I can get a tasty flank, or I can clear out a bunch of people because my team refuses to. I like to cut off the flanks, I like to cut off the pressure, I like to catch people on the sprint, and to constantly get a nice stream and feed of enemies. So going in the middle to me is a bad idea, but my team is a little bit less eager to do it this time. Last game, very eager. This game, nowhere near as eager, and I'm just doing everything I can as the spawns are getting a bit squirrely now, as the enemies go around the outer edge of the map. There's a guy up there. You'll notice when a team starts to lose this phase and they don't have any pressure here, they'll go up into those balconies, those windows, and when they're in those windows they can cause havoc. We're also getting flanked right now, which is kind of awkward because I can't heal. I'm also running the Glock, which you might not have seen the Glock for a while because I haven't had it on for ages. I forget just how much I like the Glock 18 in this. It says it's got an 840 RPM, which is the same as the honey badger, but it sounds like it fires a lot faster. And that right there was hilarious. He thought that that was an enemy in the corner, so we tried to katana them, and I got a free 2-piece. But look how fun this gun is, dude. I don't even have the 10mm round on it. It's really fun when you're on a good server and you've warmed up. And I'm just trying to put as many bullets as I can on, put some pressure on these people. Clean up as many kills, pick up those briefcases that don't make a sound for some reason. Which I'd really wish they'd change that. I don't know if it's in the works. I've not seen it on that Trello list. But this guy here, that guy ain't going to be happy, ladies and gentlemen. So I got 75 and 4. We win again, and it's nothing but people wanting me kicked. All the people that said GG before have now become not my friend. They're not a fan at all. So we move on to the final of the third entries here, ladies and gentlemen. It's back to the scene of the crime, back to when it all started, which is Trainwreck again, King of the Hill again, and they're all on the enemy team again. So everybody that was my ally are now my enemies for a second time, and they've just been essentially rolled by me, and they're not happy. So we get to do it again. And I don't seem to have changed anything on the MP5 on this particular one, because I'm quite enjoying this setup. The only thing I haven't tried on the MP5 at the moment, guys, if you're wondering, is the suppressed MP5 SD, I think it's called, the barrel that is the integrated suppressor. I think it increases hip fire, something like that. I love the look of that barrel, but I don't know if I'm going to use it too much unless it feels good in my hands. I have played with a 10mm mag, and I'll probably make a video on that one, because the 10mm is by far the go-to choice. If you come up against a guy using an MP5 with a 10mm and he lands his shots and you land your shots, he's going to beat you. I think the only situation where you're going to win that is if you shoot him in the head and he shoots you in the head, because they get decreased headshot damage, I think. Which I don't get. That to me sounds like super fucked up, and I don't understand it at all. Why do you get rewarded for not being accurate? Weird, but there it is. Maybe it was one of the ways they wanted to balance it, but there's times when you get absolutely client-sided by that gun with 10mm on. It's definitely moving towards being a meta SMG, if not the meta itself. Because I've come across a couple of capable players that have put me down in the time it took me to land 2 bullets on them. And as you can see from the gameplay, I'm not exactly the biggest slouch when it comes to trying to shoot people. But if you look in the chat right now, you can see all the names that aren't happy with me. And if you go back to the first video, you'll see them all rather happy when I'm on their team. And it goes to show, doesn't it? And I wonder how you feel about this, ladies and gentlemen. When you are being carried, or at least feeling the benefits of a good player, does it annoy you when that good player is then on the opposite team and you're feeling the other side of it? I'm actually going to say something back now. Just to try and poke them a little bit. Because everybody seems to think you're cheating in this game when you're actually just better than them. So there you go, we kick the Hive a little bit, see what they say. Because did you notice there were none of them saying any of this when I was carrying them? When I was on their team, they were all fine. They're absolutely fine with it. There wasn't a single, oh wow, that dude is clearly untowards what he's trying to do here. We need to get him off, we need to kick him out. It was just... And then they get saltier and saltier, don't they? And it's just delicious. Because I really don't care, ladies and gentlemen. You know, you might watch this and think, oh, you're just a filthy tryhard. This, to me, is not trying hard. It's just, this is how I play. This is how I always play. I've always played like this. You know, I just get shit done. I just get in there and try and have some fun. Ooh, this was interesting. Watch how shit my aim is here. I missed all of those flicks. I was very disappointed with that. Still pretty sexy, but you could tell that my aim just wasn't where it needed to be. And the reason for that is I've been playing a lot of Black Ops 3 Zombies, and my sensitivity on that game is a little bit faster than this one when I converted it. So when I come back to this game and I try and flick around, I would have been on target if I'd been playing more Bad Business, but I wasn't, so I was over-flicking and adjusting. And that could have been a delicious clip if it had been cleaner. But it just goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, there's plenty of room to improve. And those situations don't show up as much as I'd like. I'd love to get into those situations more where I flank the enemy and there's just a beautiful crop of people shooting. Because that's what I play for. That moment you just saw, guys, is what I'm playing for. I'm trying to find moments where I can do that. And it's... One of the things I've noticed about Bad Business is when you play it long enough, you realise just how powerful the movement is. And if you remember, I always said that I didn't care about the movement in this game because I wanted to practice my aim. But over time, I've gradually got to the point where as soon as I realise that it's not going my way, I'll start to move instead of aiming, and it hurts going for clips. Because there's times when if you sit down and you focus on your aim, you'll win. But I'm so programmed now, the moment I start taking bullets to try to air strafe and jump and move around and get into cover, that I've moved towards being a better player because it's a smarter choice, but it's not as cool and as fun. And I wish I could turn it off, actually. I wish I could go back to what I was like when I first started playing, where I just used to sit there and in bed and dig my heels in and draw a line in the sand and just commit. But you just can't turn it off, you know. It's programming, it's survivability, it's survival instincts that you get from playing video games. But these were fun games, and if you're wondering, guys, these are all in a row. This is 3 games in a row, so it was such a fun lobby for me, even though the majority of the enemy team started to really dislike me. And after this, I did leave, because when everybody's bitching about you, it's that moment of I could continue making these people miserable, or I could go and find something else. And I've got no qualms about bouncing. I just think it's funny how angry people get. And don't get me wrong, when I play, I get angry, but I don't get angry at the enemy, I get angry at myself. Like, to me, I don't care what you do. I care what I do, and I care when it's not good enough for my standard, you know? So I'm constantly disappointed by what I'm doing, but what you're doing is what you should be doing. And every so often when there's a katana spammer, or, you know, somebody's using a shotgun and they kill me repeatedly on the bounce, it's kind of annoying. Here we go, poke them a bit more. Really dig the wound in there. But it's just par for the course, isn't it? But it's just that funny thing. It's perfectly fine. Like, you'll see people on this game that will be happy that they have a cheater on their team as long as they win. Recently, this last 2 weekends, I've kicked so many cheaters that were on my team, it's not even funny. Like, I've kicked cheaters on my team, tried my ass off to win, and then gone on to lose because the cheater was the only person on the team doing anything. And it's just the way it works, you know? But I would rather lose and not have a cheater on my team than win with that garbage, you know? Because let's face it, winning on bad business doesn't really mean anything. If your stats are high enough, you spend every game carrying people that have literally just picked up a laptop for the first time. It's just the way it works. But there's a little showcase here of the people complaining about me. We've got Bungo, he made a lot of noise. We've got Mr. Ivan, who is a max prestige, katana main with 13,000 kills, and he has the gall to complain about me.